Greetings all, BWS2K here again. It's been a while. What do you say we play some Marvel Heroic role-playing? What do you think? What do you think? I think it's been about a month since I made the last Marrow video, and I will explain why. So let's take a peek. This was the mythic process that I had to set up our next scene, and I'm going to go through it in a minute, but I had all this stuff, and it has been sitting here for about a month, and I just couldn't get through it. So what I had determined was to give Marrow some team members from the other mutants that were captured alongside her, and I rolled them up using the random tables and had all these ideas, but I was like, well, do I want to like make some sheets for them and then use Hero Forge to make some like models for visuals for them, and then other stuff happened, and it just, I once again got too caught up. I think I've explained before, but sometimes I just get too caught up in the details, and it's like, it's not exactly analysis paralysis, but it's sort of like that. And I finally just a couple days ago was like, you know what, just dump the whole idea and do something else. So I duplicated the page and then I put a big X through it, and just kind of like reminded myself the scene setup is tossed out the window and replaced with this new one. So I embraced that fully and did exactly that. I did circle Nimrod because I want to make sure, hopefully we can remember to put Nimrod on the list at the end of this session, because I think he's important enough. And we did have that interrupt scene before where he fought Cable, so I feel like that's relevant. Actually, maybe we should put Cable on there too. Is Cable on there? No. We'll try to remember to put both of them on there. I'm saying that, and I'm almost certainly going to forget. So this is what I wrote a couple days ago. Too much crunch, overwhelmed and stymied. Time for a refresh. I'm not even using complete sentences, right? Let's start with a montagey recap that moves us forward in time a bit, but switch out to an entirely new team, someplace snowy. Maybe with some surviving members of Alpha Flight, 'cause I'm thinking in Days of Future Past, the Resistance is based in Canada. I'm not sure how much of that is hinted at in the comics. I feel like Wolverine says something about it when he first meets Kate, but in the Days of Future Past guide, right, Nightmares of Future Past guide for the Marvel superheroes, I know it mentions it, but I'm pretty sure it is mentioned in the original comic. Either way, we're going to adopt the idea that, loosely speaking, that there is some remaining members up in the snowy parts of Canada, northern Canada. And then I started thinking about characters that I am familiar with, that I like, that I've used before. Maybe not in videos. I don't think I've used Deathlock. Well, actually, Deathlock was the example in in my very first Marvel Heroic example, like how to play Marvel Heroic. I think it was him and Scorpion fighting. But I love Deathlock. I love Cold Heart, which I never expected to, but I don't know. I kind of like her deal. And then Sauron, who is just a wonderful. If Marrow is a beautiful mess, Sauron is like 95% beautiful mess and 5% Lord of the Rings. So maybe use those guys in their own vignette, fighting some snow sentinels, like, you know, specially adapted. And then I just threw in a bunch of edits as I was working back and forth. No Alpha Flight members really calling out to me. I looked at a list. I was like, well, they're cool, but none of them really like appealed to me for a Days of Future Past setting, at least not at the moment. Maybe we can use them again. So maybe their base has been compromised, and these characters were the only ones that were left. And then as I was planning out, I decided Sauron, he deserves his own scene. So the next time we have an interrupt or something, we'll cut to a scene of Sauron in the Savage Land, and do something cool with him and maybe some of the mutates. And then lastly, I imagine, so because we're fast forwarding in time here a little bit. It's 2013. I don't remember exactly. I don't remember exactly. I think it's 30 years, right? Because it was 1983. So it was like 30 years. So like, she would be probably in her. She's definitely older than Kitty Pryde in the comics when Kitty is young. So she would be a few years older than Kate, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I kind of imagined like a Mr. Freeze situation where has some kind of suit that has like preserved her cryonically, and maybe Speed Freak died at some point, so like the suit is sort of one of his suits adapted with her cryonic technology. And then so once I got that down, I set up a fate chart, but I didn't ever use it. I didn't have any questions to ask an oracle, and that happens a lot where I don't know, I get the idea and I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And I don't really have questions. Um, when I first started using Mythic, I used that a lot, but I don't anymore. I don't know. I get the idea and then I run with it. So this is what we've got. I'll read the intro first. So we would open with a montage of Marrow preparing and training an increasing number of mutants in the alley, intercut with shots of sentinels. Oh, I should when we rolled the mythic prompt was about vehicles. Let's see, what was it? The NPC, it was an NPC action. I rolled sentinels and they had transform vehicle. So, you know, other than being transformers, I was like, what, how does that work? So I just decided that they were making a digger vehicle that could tunnel underneath the town and find other mutants hiding or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure it out later. So that's what we're doing. So we're intercutting shots of Marrow training up sort of a new generation of X-Men. I don't have a name yet. I thought Morlocks, but with an X at the end instead of the CKS. But it just sounds like the word Morlocks. So I'm not I'm not really sure if that's what I want to use or not. Or maybe they're just the X-Men. I don't know. If you have ideas, throw it in the comments. But so we would see shots of her doing that, and then the Sentinels working on their sort of like digger vehicle transport thing. And I think we'd see Kate and Rachel being part of that production, sort of toiling in the sort of the slave laborer situation. And that's kind of how we would open the issue. But this scene takes place hundreds of miles away in the Canadian wilderness, a boreal forest clearing. So like you've got the forest in the background, but there's a bit of a clearer area that is dotted with smoldering ruins. It is one of the few remaining outposts belonging to the resistance, and it has been destroyed. Been destroyed recently, like just recently. We're picking up after the explosions, you know, maybe a few minutes after them, and things are still on fire and such. Sentinels that are specially adapted to cold weather operations are escorted by ground forces preparing to sweep for any living survivors. Technically, there are two, right? Technically, because I imagine they don't read on sensors as being alive, at least not in the way that we would typically think. So we've got sort of an exploded forward resistance base, and there are only two survivors crawling from the wreckage, or maybe we should say emerging from the wreckage. And I picture it as being overcast, so like daytime, but overcast, so everything is just kind of that white, pale lighting. So we've got two scene distinctions. We've got Canadian boreal forest, and then we've got ruined Alpha Flight base. I'm not sure. When I pick scene distinctions, I usually try to have one that grounds us in the place and time, and then one that place and or time, I guess you should say, and then one that kind of speaks to the specific anything that they could pick up. Are there cars they could pick up, or lampposts, or are there alligators, or, you know, whatever it happens to be. I don't really think too much. That's kind of the motto of I guess these videos. BW doesn't really think too much, and it mostly works out. Excuse me, I've got my water. Take breaks for that. And not forget that, like I have before in the past. So our Doom pool is formidable, though there are no D12s. Remember, the only way that we get XP, and the XP goes to us, the player, not to any particular character, is when we spend D12s out of the Doom pool. So we've got a 10, 3 8s, and a 6 in the Doom pool. And then we have two data files. We have the first one is Deathlock, Michael Collins Deathlock, and the second one is Cold Heart, which I adapted a little bit to fill out a little bit about what I thought she would be doing in this setting. So Deathlock, just real quick, is pretty much a pared down version of the data file I used in the MHR tutorial video, but he has, you have to do what's right, not what's easiest, which is mostly a direct quote. I think he's talking to his son when he says it, is you have to do what's right, son, and not what's easiest, or something like that. But it's basically his thing. And then also pacifist programmer, because he is a computer programmer and he doesn't like to kill, but he is stuck inside his third distinction, which is killing machine. He has superhuman durability, strength, reflexes, and then he has D10 weapons. He has an SFX called Juggernaut, which allows him to ignore physical stress unless it's caused by electromagnetic sources. And he also has an SFX called Protect the Weak, which is to spend a plot point to take physical stress intended for a nearby target. So you can kind of like jump in the way or something like that. And he has Combat Master, Menace Master, and Tech Master. And then Cold Heart. So one of the things that she says in her debut issue is, "This armor was made for me." And I just like the idea that that quote still applies, but it's not the same armor, right? It's like a combination of Speed Freak's armor and her armor, and updated and adapted, and probably some newer technology in there. I also like the idea that maybe her skin is more like pale blue, like going with the Mr. Freeze, not necessarily like not the Arnold Schwarzenegger Mr. Freeze, where he like is glittery blue, but like just the idea that she is preserving her life somehow. I thought about putting Bucky in this too, by the way, Winter Soldier, but I think we'll save him for another time too. And then villains are the heroes. It used to be heroes are the villains for her when she was a bad guy, but now she's got villains are the heroes, sort of subverting that idea. And then Memorial Vengeance was one of her originals, and I kept it because I think she's got even more to fight for. She's got Cold Blast as a D6. I'm not sure that that's going to come up, but we'll see. Enhanced Durability, D6 Speed, and then D10 Weapon. Now, the Speed Freak suit, if you'll recall, has adamantium blades. And she, of course, has her own blades. So, again, adapting those things. She has 2 SFX Paralytic Blade, which is when she's inflicting a paralyzing complication on a target, she can add a D6 and step up the effect. Again, she's not really paralyzing Sentinels, I don't think. Maybe we can say there's some EMP technology in there. I'm not sure. And then Speed Freak. Shut down any of these powers to step up speed, the D6 speed, for the remainder of the scene. And she can recover that during a transition scene. So she can basically shut down the weapons, the Cold Blast, the Enhanced Durability, and step the D6 up to a D8, D10, D12 if she wants to. And then Combat Expert, Covert Expert, and Tech Expert. And they are fighting the Snowtunnel Squad, right? I was thinking of original names when I came up with that, which is a 5 or a 4d8 mob. 4d8 mob, adapted for cold and mutant hunter. They have weapons and armor at D8 and flight D6, but they also have area attack, which I called network systems, combat expert, and tech expert. So that's what we're looking at. I think that mob will be appropriate. I don't think it'll be overwhelming. It's not like they have anything that's going to do like the Hydra squad that Cold Heart and Speed Freak were fighting. So we'll see how it goes. I think they'll be all right. And I do have an ending. Sometimes I don't have an ending in mind, but I do have an ending of how I want this scene to end. And so I'm curious to see how we get there. So let's go ahead and get started. So we've got the Snowtunnels, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there's 4 of them just because there's 4 D8s in the mob pool. But I actually imagine they normally travel in trios. So I imagine that there's like 3 of them, and I think they're probably smaller than the other Sentinels, the purple Sentinels that we were used to seeing, but they look a little bit like snowtroopers from Star Wars, from Hoth Battle and stuff. They kind of just have different shaped plating, and it's white and sort of camouflaged for Arctic or cold weather operations. And so they're kind of marching ahead, and then behind them is like maybe we have some troops in power armor, maybe a couple of those, and then flanking a transport, maybe like a snowcat kind of transport with 10 or a dozen regular soldiers in there without super armor or anything like that. So they're kind of like approaching the scene, and I think because they've just attacked and are expecting to kind of mop things up, that maybe the first attack goes to Deathlock, and I think he's going to just try and blast a hole in the center of the middle Sentinel that is sort of leading the trio. And so we're just going to pull a pool for him. Oh, you can see all the rolling I did for the characters and stuff last time. So to do this, he's acting alone. Now, see, they both have Buddy at D8 and Solo at D10, which is, they could still be working together, but that's not actually going to be their best dice. But they were kind of on a team, but I don't think they're great team players. So we'll see how that works. Solo at D10, though, because this is not anything to do with Cold Heart. And I think we're going to use Killing Machine as a D8. This is definitely D10 weapons. And his SFX don't matter. And then Combat Master, D10. And this is targeting the Snow Tunnel squad. All right. 7 and a 5 is just 12. That 3, do I want to go for 15? No, I've got to beat a D8. It's not great. I will go ahead and buy Hitch, and I will step up the lowest dice, which is that 6, get an 8. So DL's total, action total, is 12, which is not great, with D8 versus the mob. Yeah, okay, that's all right. It'll work. So they are 4d8s. They get their mob dice, adapted for cold and mutant hunter. I don't know if either of those have ruined, maybe ruined alpha flight base at a d4 because they're expecting it to be mostly done. And we'll just step up another d8 to a d10. Armor d8. Oops, not 12 d8s, 1 d8. And then combat expert. I assume combat expert works passively as well, all the time, like for everybody. Yeah. Oh. That is not a great roll for them. So they can do a 5 and a 4, which is a 9. Which is a success. And I really hate the bookkeeping with partial dice on mobs. So maybe I'll just let it be a critical success. I can do a 7. Yeah, I'll do a 7. So mob reaction total is 7. With d4. So I'm purposely choosing a lower number just because I hate the idea of putting a d8 complication on them, and then when it steps up to a d10, remove the die. It's okay. We got plenty of dice. We got plenty of time. We'll just let this be a success, a heroic success for Deathlock. So 1 die is taken out. So the lead sentinel falls. Just Deathlock has like a pistol that he used, but he also is bristling with weapons, and this is a more harsh setting. So I think he has some kind of plasma rifle adaptation, and he just, and it's just this big beam that goes right through the center of the first sentinel that just, takes one more step and then falls down into the snow. Oh, that's on the map. So let's do text, big X. Actually, let's duplicate. Should have had these prepped. All right, so now there's the 3d8 mob. Rad. So that's it. So then I think maybe now they're going to jump into action, and they are going to do an attack. Now they don't really, I don't know that they can see both of them. Does it make sense to do Cold Heart next? Yeah, let's let Cold Heart be next, because then they can use area attack, and it would make a little bit more sense to use that SFX. So we'll pull Cold Heart out. So Deathlock just did that big blast. Cold Heart's going to come in from the side, I think, using her speed and just kind of like zooming over the snow with her adamantium blades out, and she's going to try to basically slice through the legs of one of the sentinels, that one of the 2 remaining sentinels, with the adamantium blades. I think that's what I wanted. So we're going to have the D10. I guess you could, no, it's not really a buddy action, is it? Because they're not even fighting the same sentinel. So we're going to say no. This armor was made for me. Villains are the heroes. Memorial Vengeance. Ruined Alpha Flight Base. I think villains are the heroes. Yeah, we'll go with that. Maybe she has some past having worked with the Sentinels for a while, because she's not a mutant. And she was a government operative, and she was, she would hunt down supers. So maybe she actually was originally part of the Sentinel forces and then sort of flipped, maybe left for dead. I like that backstory. Okay. So villains are the heroes, D8, and then cryonic cybernetics, I think just the weapon. is enough. I don't think Paralytic Blade or Speed Freak really helps, but we'll do Combat Expert as a D8. Not an amazing pool, but oh, we can do a 12 here. All right. Sure. So Cold Heart's action total is 12 with the D8 effects versus the mob. I guess, of course, it's versus the mob. I guess I don't need to include that. And then so their reaction is 3d8s plus Ruined Alpha Flight at d4. Why do I do this to myself? Bump up a d8 to a d10. Armor d8. And Combat Expert d8. All right, there we go. So this is a failure on Cold Heart's part. So this will be mob reaction total is going to be 14. What did she roll? 12? 14 with D8 effect. And then I will spend a D8 from the Doom Pool to inflict that D8 back, since it was a successful reaction. Since it was a successful reaction, what you can do is spend a Doom die or a plot point if you're the player, and you can counterattack basically with your effect die. So we're going to take that D8 effect that they have, that the Snowtunnels rolled, and we're going to inflict it back onto her. And so I think we're going to go with, do we want it to be physical? Maybe she gets booted. Maybe she goes through and slices. No, you know what? I don't think so. I'm actually going to go with mental. And I'm going to say that she's frustrated. So I'm going to say her attack works in the sense that it slices up some armor, but it's not as successful because she's a little rattled from the attack. And yeah. So she's a little bit on edge as far as that goes. And maybe seeing, maybe she has a little bit of anxiety about fighting Sentinels because of her past backstory that we're just making up as we go. Okay, so then it is now the Snowtunnel's turn, and now they have 2 targets. So now they can use their area attack or their networked systems, and they are going to open fire. And again, this is not just them. This is the power suited troops and the transport as well that are just kind of like open fire, and machine guns and lasers and all this sort of stuff. And probably the power armor would be a cool. Maybe they take off to chase Cold Heart. So, to do physical stress. So they are going to roll 3d8s. The, I think adapted for cold fits pretty well, like all around. And weapons, d8. Combat Expert, d8. I'm tempted to throw in some Doom dice, but I actually like to keep the Doom dice to keep extra effects. So I think I'm actually gonna hold. This is decent. Oh, and to get the D8 from Cold Heart. She has that mental stress. So you can do that. You can add in, I don't know what the rules say specifically offhand. I don't remember, but I feel like the rule that I always followed was if they were area attacking against multiple opponents, multiple targets that each had stress, you just pick the highest ones. Like you can choose. If Deathlock, for instance, had D10 emotional stress, I might choose to add a D10 instead of the D8 mental from Cold Heart. So you don't get to add everybody's stress necessarily, but the highest one. Yeah. And this is going to be area attack, so we got to throw in another D6 for the networked systems. Ooh, all right. Let's get groggy. We can do easily a total of 14. But I am now going to spend a Doom die. I'm going to spend this D8. And I'm going to keep the other 6. So this is going to be an 8, a 6, and a 6. So a total of 20. And then it's just going to be D8 effects to both. And this is physical stress. So Deathlock rolls D10 solo. Maybe Killing Machine as a D4. Get him another plot point. Because he's fighting other killing machines. Durability. I may use the Juggernaut SFX. I think you can probably use that after you roll. And then Combat Expert. Or Combat Master, rather. And they don't have any complications or anything, so yeah. Total of 20. Can he do it? And if he spends a plot point. All right. Okay. Okay, let's do it. We're going to spend a plot point to keep 3 dice. We'll add the 7 and the 9 for a total of 16. Plus, we can make a 20, but we need to make more than a 20. If we do the 9 and the 8 for 17, we could, if I had one more, if the 4 was, like if the 7 was another 8, or if the 8 was a 9, we could actually take off we could counterattack them, which would be funny. But we're not going to worry about it. So we can do a total of, what did I say? 9 and 8 is 17 plus the 7, which is 14. So, or 24 rather. So we can do a total of 24, right? Is that right? It's 15 plus 9, yeah. With D4. He's fine. So I think probably the he's fine reflects the fact that he did get hit, and maybe gets like knocked back a bit, but is not damaged in any way. But now Cold Heart, who already has a little bit of stress mentally. This armor was made for me. Let's hope so. Let's give it as a D8 and hope it works out. Enhanced durability. Garlic Blade, Speed Freak. Combat Expert. Oh, dearie. Not sure you're going to make it, dear. Anything else we can use here? Ooh. All right. We do have a plot point. We do have a plot point, so let's use it. And we'll keep the 7 and the 7, which is 14, plus the 8, which would bring us to 22. With a D8. He's fine. So all of the counterattacks, or the area attack rather, that the squad is not successful. That's cool. So bullets off the armor, and I think Deathlock is probably targeted by the other Snowtunnels. And his armor is actually like laced with adamantium. It's reinforced and stuff. Or his armor, his like armor plating. And again, they probably look different now. So it's been like augmented and stuff. Cool. All right, new round. So that was the bad guys. And then you want to have the bad guys go again? Sure. Let's have the bad guys go again. So I think it's just going to be the same thing. 3d8s. And adapted for cold. No, let's do Mutant Hunter at D4, because neither one of these are mutants. And that allows us to, for the first time in a long time, step up a D10 to a D12 in the beautiful. All right, so D4 for that. And then weapons, D8. They do get an extra D6 for the networked SFX, Combat Expert, 1D8. And then they're adding in Cold Heart's stress. And so this is basically just repeating it. Oof. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do first is I'm going to have Deathlock spend a plot point, and we're going to grab a stunt. But Cold Heart doesn't have any plot, so she can't take advantage. But that is still a decent roll. 8 and 6 for a total of 14. Maybe I want to add that 7 in. So mob action total is 14 plus 7 is 21. So let's see, I use the 8 and the 6 and the 7. So it's going to be D8 and a D4 stress with D8 to probably to Cold Heart and D4 to Deathlock. And I say that because she's already got some stress on her, and her durability is only enhanced where his is superhuman. So it makes sense that in the sort of counterattack, or as they're pressing this attack, that she would maybe take more damage from it. All right, so let's have, again, Deathlock does his reaction roll. 1d10 plus Killing Machine, I think d8 here, that could help him out. Durability. Is that what he's doing? No, you know what? Let's use reflexes. Maybe he's like sort of dodging out of the way through some smoldering ruins, and trying to find cover, or maybe noting that they're also attacking Cold Heart. Maybe he's trying to make his way over to Cold Heart, and that allows us to use that Protect the Weak SFX if we need to. Yeah, let's do that. Let's say it's superhuman reflexes. It's just kind of a hard target. The Snotinel's beams are just, sort of following along. Concrete's busting up and rebar, and snow's becoming steam and mixing with the smoke. And yeah, I like that. And then combat expert, or how do we say expert? I mean master. And one of the cool things I like about Deathlock is he has a computer like in his brain, like AI. So I imagine he's like having these inner conversations, these inner dialogues about like how best to intercept and dodge and do the most damage and pinpoint weak spots and stuff. Yeah. So he's going to try to run to Cold Heart to help her out. Oof. 21. So that's a 6 and an 8 to get 14. And even if I used all of those dice, it's still only a tie, which means the mob would win. But it's really a question of heroic success. If I do 17, I can stop it from being a heroic success. You know what? I'll let it be a heroic success because D4s are annoying. So we'll do DL's reaction total. Oh my. Is the 8 and the 6 for 14 with, but you know what? My effect die steps down the D4, but it is a success, so it has to be a minimum of D4 that gets taken, so that's fine. With D10 effect, he takes, so it's D4, but the 21 that's coming in is a heroic success versus my 14, so it's actually going to step it up to a D6. Physical stress. So he's got D6 physical stress. And I think it gets clipped, basically. He's still moving in the same direction, kind of, but like gets clipped on the back of his leg, and it's like, singes his ankle armor or something like that. Throws him off balance a little bit. Scrambles his computer just like momentarily. But Cold Heart, 1d10. This armor was made for me that worked last time. She needs plot points. Let's do D4. We'll make it suspenseful. Durability and combat. So really, there isn't a whole lot that she can do here. This might be the end. Oh my good. What? Okay. That is not good, Cold Heart. So what can we do here? We've got a couple options. I can give her 1 plot point and put it would be a D6 stepped up to a D8 and then stepped up again to a D10. So I could give her a plot point and put a D10 into the Doom Pool. Or I could buy each of them individually, like give her 3 plot points and put 3 D6s in the Doom Pool, or 2 plot points, put a D6 and a D8, right? Like I could do it like that. But either way, a total of 3 to a 21 is a triple heroic, which means her D8 steps up to a D10, D12, and out, no matter which stress track it is. So she is being taken out here, unless I want Deathlock to be taken out, because I could spend his plot point, have him take physical stress, and he would get blowed up. Okay. Let's do that. Okay, so let's I guess we'll add a D10 to the Doom Pool. Give her a plot point. Add a D10 into the Doom Pool. He will spend his plot point. He will take a lot of physical stress. So I think what happens is maybe as he's running towards her, maybe they're sort of going in opposite directions, and the beam sweeps across Deathlock, but then it lands on her, like it's headed for her, so he just like jumps in the way. Yeah, that kind of fits. And he just gets blasted, and there's, you know, a cloud of metal and smoke and flame and maybe some roasting bits, and he just goes, maybe the blast just sends him into the forest, right? We'll let him be off screen. Maybe he survives, maybe he doesn't, because the dude is a tank. That much is true. But that is a terrible roll. So we'll let him suffer the consequences of that terrible roll off screen in the forest somewhere. So he is gone, and now it is just Coldheart left. But she just saw what her comrade has done, and I feel like I almost want to step up her mental stress as a result, but maybe this steals her into action. So she sees what's going on, and how do we want to play this? Obviously I could use speed to try to escape the scene. That feels a little bit inappropriate, you know what I mean? So I think she's just gonna go for them. Maybe she's gonna push her mental stress and go a little bit frenzy, as all Canadian heroes do. Right? Yeah, let's do that. So seeing Michael take the shot for her and ending up in the forest kind of like gives her that close-up look where her eyes become dish plates, you know, and she's like has flashbacks to losing Speed Freak. Oh yeah, let's flash back to that. So like it's really Michael Collins' Deathlock going into the forest, right? But she's seeing it as Joss, was that his name? And I have to check now because it's going to bother me. Where was it? Was it here? No, it was the other game. All right, I'm not going to check it then. But I feel like they called him a name in the handbook, but it was the wrong name, and I pointed it out. And I don't remember if Joss is the right one or the wrong one. But anyway, she's seeing Speed Freak, and so that's like giving her a little bit more anxiety. So we're actually going to, first off, before we forget, include the D8 mental. We're pushing stress here. So we're including the D8, but then after it's done, it steps up to a D10. And then we will include solo. Memorial Vengeance. I think that's the obvious. I think this is going to be weapon. So what is she doing? So she's got her blades, and I think she's just charging at the let's see, it was the Snow Tunnels. Yeah, I think that's what it's going to be. She's just going to charge at the nearest one, and maybe, yeah, she's going to charge at the nearest one and kind of get a speed boost and try to just like stabby all over it. No real like tactic per se. And then combat expert. There's got to be something more we can do here, but no. Well, we'll see what we might be able to keep some dice. Okay, that's not a bad run. So her action total. So 9 and 5. Let's do the 9 and 5 for 14, and then add in the other 4. So that's 18 with D10 effect versus the mob. Right? The 9 and the 5 is 14, plus another 4 is 18. Keep that. Yep, that's good. So then the mob reaction is 3d8s. They're going to get her D10 mental stress. And then maybe the fact that they're in a clearing and there's no cover really at all. And we'll use it as a D4, and we will step up a D10 to a D12. We did it, folks. We did it. We got there. Everything is right with the world again. The Doom Pool's got 2 D12 in it. Weapon. Oh, this is armor. And combat expert. All right. Defending against an 18. Oh. Okay. Well. So we've got mob reaction total. We can do the 8 and the 8 for 16. And then include the 6. So let's spend the D10 to include the 6 for 24, right? 22 rather. 16 and 6, so 22 with D10 effect. They're fine. So I'm not sure what it is, and maybe this is something we can explore later. I'm not sure what it is about these snow tunnels, but the adamantium blades, or at the very least her adamantium blades, do not seem to be very effective against their armor. And so she just kind of like runs at one, speed jumps up and just starts, but it keeps glancing off, and finally she gets grabbed by Sentinel and just hurled into the snow, right? And the snow goes flying everywhere, and she goes flying back. And I think this is probably the end of the scene. So we'll spend the 2d12 and we'll end. So okay, here's what happens, right? I'm going to spend the 2d12. Come on. So we need to remember that Marrow gets 2 XP for this. Well, we get 2 XP for this. So what happens is they throw her, and she smashes down onto the ground, and maybe her armor is a little bit injured from this, and then the transport empties out. The power troops continue to scan the base and the Sentinels, but the regular soldiers begin to surround her and close in on her, and her. Does she have a full face helmet? I don't know. I don't know that I want her to do that, but Mr. Freeze has like a glass dome sort of thing, so I think she has one of those, and it kind of, maybe it's cracked, and she's got like glowing blue. Predator has glowing green. She's got glowing blue blood dripping maybe from her lip, and she kind of coughs and chuckles, and the soldiers are like, what's so funny? How do they want to say it? What's the joke? So I don't know. They say something, like, what's so funny? And she says, she kind of like spits back at them, and she says, you don't know where you are. You don't know whose territory this is. And I think, it's a boreal forest, and it's snowy. And I think as she's laying there on the ground, the snow is starting to fall, just like a gentle snowfall. And she says, you don't know whose territory this is. And then from out of the forest, you hear these howls, and the troops kind of like look up, and they start looking around, and it just echoes through the clearing, and it becomes clearer and clearer. And it's a word, and the word is Wendigo, Wendigo, but it's multiple voices. And so from the clearing, a howl breaks through the chill air as the first rush of the blizzard. I originally was going to have a blizzard, but we can just have it be snow. Envelops the entire clearing, Wendigo. And from the tree line come just dozens of Wendigo, but they have the venom symbiotes on them. So they're all like symbiote Wendigos into the clearing. And of course, if you know anything about Wendigo, the prospect of having 10 or 12 tasty soldiers in their territory is probably something they've been looking forward to for a long time. And that's how we're going to end it. Remember the 2 XP for next time. What a dark, Days of Future Past, man. It's a dark future, dystopian future, and we're just really embracing that stress. But that was a rough roll for Cold Heart. That was a rough roll. But I will say, more or less, this is how I expected it to end coming in. So that's okay. All right. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks so much for joining me. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any thoughts, comments, suggestions, go ahead and throw them in the comments. And and we will see you next time. Excelsior.